All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the study session of the school board meeting. It is Tuesday, December 12th, 6 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, which is the stage left. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Dr. Finch, changes to the agenda.
No changes.
We have one discussion item for the study session, which is WVSD standards for school boards. Peter, would you like to make an introduction of our guests this evening?
Sure, but before we introduce the guests, I'd like to introduce our new board members. So we have James Kephart here, and then we have Stephen Wolcott. It goes by Steve Wolcott. And Joel Heed is here. So appreciate our new board members joining us. And of course, we have Michael Thorner here as our president. Mark Strong's not able to be here at the study session. We figured working with Mr. Thorner here as president, a nice way to start off with our new board members is to have a presentation from the Washington State School Directors Association on the Washington School Board standards. There's been a lot of work into these research-based standards, and wanted to provide opportunity for the new board members to have an introduction to the standards. In just a short hour here, we won't be able to go real in depth, but it'd be nice to have an introduction. We're so grateful that Scott Dahlquist from WVSD is able to be here. I've been to trainings that Scott has done at the state conference, and also Scott has actually worked with the West Valley School Board previously. Prior to COVID, we had a session that Scott helped us with as well. So it's great to have Scott back. He's local here in the Yakima Valley, so it's nice that we're able to tap into his expertise. So don't want to take any more of his time. We'll turn it over to Scott Dahlquist, and we'll have you present up here. We have the microphone, so we are streaming on YouTube, and have opportunities for our community members to hear the presentation as well.
Great. So thanks. Casey and I are going to try to make this work so that I can stand over here and see if the microphone works. If not, I'll grab it. So,
Okay.
Nice to be here, and it's a really great opportunity. Actually, I'm fairly casual about these things, so I would start by saying that poor Peter Finch is the only one in his family who escaped being in my sixth grade class. And his father actually hired me as a principal when he was on the board in Wapato years ago. So, and we were talking tonight about the distance that I traveled. So I traveled all the way from East Valley. So it happens that I have a couple of roles with WVSD, and we'll talk about those a little bit tonight. One of them is occasionally I do a little bit of work with boards like this, but I more frequently am part of the design team of doing some of the work of professional development for school directors in the state. So what I thought about is just to get started tonight, now an hour will go kind of quickly, but I do want to have some of this be where you get a chance to talk a little bit with each other and think with each other. And so I thought what I'd like to do is just have you just off the top of your head, because you probably all know each other, but just your name and like two things. One thing that you kind of, as you're entering into this, one kind of hope or aspiration you have for this work on the board, and one thing that you think you need that would help you as a board member. Okay, so think about that, and just popcorn. Whenever one of you is ready to think about one kind of aspiration you have and something you think you might need to help them.
Yeah, one aspiration I have would be that I would be a good conduit between our community and our school, making sure that people just have better clarity. I think that that's one of the issues that we always struggle with is what is going on and how to celebrate it. The thing that I would enjoy doing or look forward to doing is learning how to communicate that effectively. And so I've been just poring over policies and procedures, and there's a ton. And so just how to know to communicate that to other people as people are reaching out and having expectations or hopes for things and just being able to clarify what is our school district about.
Thank you. Great. Thanks, Joel, for getting us started. Steve, you want to go?
I'm Steve, and I think for me, a lot of what I said during my campaign actually was to be listening, and I want to listen to the community, but I also want to, be able to sort of same as Joel, be able to communicate back and forth and get ideas from people and present ideas, and I think in the world that we're living in, I also want to make sure we keep it civil when we disagree.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I want? That's hard, 10 years into this. I'm really proud of our school district, and I'm very proud of our school district. I think that there are a lot of things that we do well, but I think that we should always be in a growth mindset, and we should always be asking, is what we're doing the best thing that we can do? Is there room for improvement? Just a constant growth mindset relative to our district. In terms of what do I need? A clear mind and patience. That's what I need.
Yeah, I think along the same lines, I want to see effective. I want to be effective on the school board, and I want to see our school district grow. You know, I think we do well in the state, but I want to see us do better. You know, and I want to see us be the best. You know, I love West Valley, and so that's important to me. And then I think what I'd want to do is partnering, you know, with these guys. I'm grateful I got to meet Michael Thorner before this. We had coffee together and got to know him, and you know, and I think having a good partnership in leadership is really important, and a partnership with all the school district members, the teachers and the principals and Mr. Finch. So yeah, I think that's an area I definitely want to grow in.
Great. So as we spend a little bit this hour together tonight, we'll think about ways that WVSD might support you in going forward. And also toward the end, we'll do a little bit of what WVSD can do and what the offerings might be there. But first of all, it's interesting to hear your comments, because much of what you're saying kind of fits in with what the research says about effective boards. And so we're going to kind of take a look at that, is the reason we're looking kind of at the standards to begin with, because what your desires are fitting well with what research says makes a difference for kids. And in the end, since that's what we're kind of all supposed to be here for, kind of makes it most sense. So a few things just to get us started, just the introductions, and then here's kind of our plan. And usually I would have you guys do a lot more of the talking than I would. Tonight might be a little bit more of me talking than I normally would do, but we'll kind of do a quick overview of the board role and an introduction to the standards. And then we'll talk a bit about the WVSD board self-assessment survey. And then we'll talk a little bit about what WVSD might do to support you. And so that's kind of our goal and kind of our intended journey here. So a few things. One is just thinking about you as a team, I thought it was really interesting that right away you're all talking about working together and collaborating, and you're going to kind of notice a theme of cooperation here, not just because people think that might be a good idea, but because it's kind of proven that it's essential for kids. So that's kind of really important here. So a couple of things to think about is, do school boards make any difference at all? You know, and because in a way, if you think about what I've popped up on the screen here, you know, what are the factors that really affect student achievement? And by that, we mean student success. I mean, achievement can mean a lot of things, both academic and a lot of other things tied into that. But sort of the closest thing to the students, the proximal factors, are really the parents and the students and the teachers and the principal that deal directly with them all the time, right? Who has the direct contact. And you are more of the distal factors. You're not working directly with the kids every day. Neither is Peter. And the community is not in the classroom every day, most community members. And so what's interesting about this, though, is that both of these factors are important for kids to achieve well. And if you think about it, it's kind of logical, because really, those of you in the green here and the distal factors, you have a big effect on those people up above, right? So you have a lot of effect on the students and parents and teachers and principals. So it's not surprising that research says that boards that are effective make a difference. And so WVSD has been spending some time with researchers and others taking a look at that. And so that's where the standards have come from. And so tonight, because Peter mentioned this, we'll start with the standards, but we're going to kind of go a little further than that in a little while. So really the 5 core principles are the standards that we have on the screen. We'll talk about in a minute. I won't read them to you, but I do want you to know where they came from. And so there's a lot more research that's been done about teachers and their effect and instruction's effect on kids than there is about school boards' effect on the world of education. But there's some, and it's a growing body of research. Some of it really comes from Iowa. There's been a lot of study in Iowa about what did the school boards in Iowa do that made a difference for all kids in the district. And that's where these standards predominantly were built from. They were really, these have been worked on for over a decade and then recently updated, but they came from that. And then thematically, I will tell you that there are two researchers from Montana who've been doing a lot of work with analyzing school boards actually in Washington State and in Montana and talking about what seems to be happening and how does that have an effect on students in this whole thing. So I want to start with having you guys just kind of familiarize a little bit with these 5. And I think what we'll do is give you a chance to actually just, since it's a study session, we might actually do a little bit of studying here. So what I thought we would do is, let's first of all just take a look at the standards for a minute and how they're organized. So I'll give you the split copy. You have the one that's printed. So, but if you look just on the first part of this, let's look on page 4 and 5. So if you're looking at these pages. So notice the standards are over here. And notice that there are 5 of them, but if you look at the top of page 5, what you're going to notice is those little black little box up here is telling you how this booklet is organized, right? So there are the standards, and underneath there are benchmarks, and under the benchmarks there are indicators. So as you take a look at these standards, what you're going to notice is that in this booklet or in your printed copies, you're going to notice that there are questions related to each benchmark. And I want you to be aware that at some point in time, when you take a board self-assessment survey, what you're going to notice is those questions get turned into indicators and that boards respond to those. So I'm going to kind of start by giving you a flavor. It's been several years, maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe since the West Valley Board has taken the self-assessment that's related to this. And my suggestion is that you wouldn't do that right away, like maybe next summer, after you've all had time to work together for a while, would be a really good idea. But the way they're organized is that the things that are listed as indicators here, or that you notice in questions, get turned into statements, and every board member's response to those statements. And all that data gets collected and given back to you to take a look at how are you perceiving your work together as a board. And it's really important that it's thought of as a self-assessment, meaning it's how do you see things, right? It's not how someone else is seeing things. So just to get a little bit familiar with these, I'd like to give you a chance where I'm going to have you just kind of talk in partners here. So I'm going to have Michael and James work together and Steve and Joel work together. I'm going to have Peter kind of jump back and forth between there as needed. But what I'd like you to think about is, I think I'll do it this way. So Michael and James, if you look, let's have you look at standards 1 and 2. And those really are on pages 7 to 16. And Joel and Steve, let's have you look at their keyword indicators. So standards 3 through 5, that's pages 17 to 28. So just, I want you to kind of skim these, right? And I can repeat that if you need to. So James and Michael, 1 and 2. Steve and Joel, 3 through 5. I want you to look at these, and I want you to think about it a little bit with this in mind. Now look at these. So first of all, let's kind of think about what the role of the board is. And one of the things that a couple of years ago I did was a candidate workshop, and we talked with potential people running for boards, and we were talking about what is the role of the board. And after a little while, someone said, I'm not sure that the board really gets to do anything. It seems like, it's, I'm not sure what the role is, because the WVSD tries to emphasize that the board really operates at the strategic level, and that really at the tactical level is the superintendent and his staff, and really at the operational level and the execution level is the staff. And so it's really important that as you look at these standards, you're thinking about how are these standards kind of reflecting the board's role. Because you almost can look at these and think about what nouns and verbs are being used in here that are describing what a good board does, right? So when we're talking about these with each other, what I'd like you to do is first take a few minutes, like about 5 minutes, to look through it, kind of mark up your book and think about what do you notice about those that kind of strike you as important about those standards as you're getting familiar with your role. And particularly, do you notice anything that's pointing you in the direction of the standards saying the board would be operating at a more strategic level? Like sort of what nouns and verbs are helping portray that, right? So first of all, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes just to kind of take a minute in the standards and just look at them over and kind of notice. And then I'm going to give you about 5 or 10 minutes to talk in partners and think about what are you noticing that seems important to you, and particularly what are you noticing about the role of the board. Okay, so about 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's what I have.
Okay, so let's take now about 5 minutes and just have you talk with each other, like Michael and James and Steve and Joel, talk with each other. And you're certainly welcome to talk about anything that seems important to you, but particularly what did you notice that sort of seemed relevant to the role of the board,
Mhm.
right? And then for me, I tend to sometimes think of playing around sort of with what words are kind of pointing you in that direction in terms of what things are kind of making it make sense to you. But anyway, just have a conversation with each other about what you noticed and what seemed important, and what interested you.
You want me to jump in
What were your
first?
Go ahead.
I'll just go off the first one. I think the words, so the way that the board leads responsibly and uses word like model,
Mhm.
so model and respect and integrity. And so I think
Yep.
I've heard it said of you that you're a board member, whether you're at a school board meeting or not at a school board meeting, right? You know, and so I think modeling that community is important.
It doesn't say it each time, but everything.
That's just something that
Yep. That's exactly
jumped out
right.
at me on the first page there.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Ensure communicate
fair,
support,
responsible. Those are,
inform, provide, adopt.
responsible is the big word that jumps out. And then on the second
To
is
create, communicate
is the
policies and
accountable
procedures
and
that support
openness.
and
Mhm.
celebrate the success of each student.
That
Yep, and that was
everything's very
exactly what the word
transparent,
count
you
was
know,
across the board.
Yeah,
protects the information, that it's made readily available.
But everything does come down to that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
on the other one, there's
Yeah, it's
mutual
always
understanding
either
of
reference
the
to the
roles
policy
and
or rewrite the
responsibilities of
policy.
board members and the superintendent. So I think one of the things I thought about
I'm still only that far through.
was understanding
That's interesting.
people's responsibilities and understanding their change. Peter Finch, you know,
Mhm.
understanding,
And some of it
you know,
is
it's important
necessarily
to
policy,
operate
but
through
policy
those
allows
the
you
right
to
roles
do
and responsibilities.
Mhm.
Obviously,
Yep.
policy doesn't
That-
have you-
A lot of times, just by way of example, you may
Mhm.
get
community with students.
you may
Yeah.
get a call
No,
about
it creates the
concern
how
at
to
school.
do
It
whatever
really isn't
answer you
about
need,
the
and if
three
there's not
things
an
that
answer to
influence
that,
really
you create a
policy,
policy.
budget, and supervising the
Me
superintendent.
too.
That doesn't mean that you dismiss but it doesn't mean that you interfere with the resolution of the matters you can help with facilitating. I'll go with you to talk to the principal, but if I go with, then
It has
Peter
to.
makes
It
sure that I
just
make
needs to
sure
be.
that Peter goes.
Mhm.
That kind of thing. So that's where it's the roles and responsibilities of making
I
sure
did enjoy
that
the part.
It's
And
just-
communicating
Well, that
with
was part of
us that
how well do you
we're respectful, but
onboard
also
other
communicate that
Yeah.
I can't solve every single operation of the school, but I can help point you in the right direction of the people that can solve your
Was
problem.
interesting. So I don't know how to introduce it. So
So stuck out to me on the other one is policies based on well research practices. Yeah, and so I think
Time
ensuring that that's where the policies come from,
And so then
and all
we
students
can
can
figure
achieve
out how to introduce that
and can
across your
improve. And I think that's where a lot of
this
this stuff that follows goes along in that line. I think the second standard as well is that all students can achieve, and that and there's should be a unified goal that we all believe that.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
And I think we do.
Yeah.
No,
For
agreed.
sure.
And to this, it's, again, it's adopting policies. So the policies are more of the strategic vision of the district. And it's then the board that employs the superintendent, who's the conduit to the staff to ensure that the vision is carried out. But hopefully you have a 360-degree alignment on the vision. We're all rowing in the same direction. So in other words, a vision that
Yeah.
the staff isn't going to buy in and do is a problem.
There was one that-
Bring everybody along for the ride.
That you think about, if you look at 3 and you look at 2, what would you tell each other?
Yeah.
Let's see
Right.
what works, okay?
Okay.
So give you a couple minutes to be thinking about where you want to share it.
It's a bit of a fire hydrant.
Yeah, for sure.
Information.
Yeah.
Something stuck out to me: healthy relationships by communicating supportively and empowering others. I've always led by empowering others, and I think enabling others to be leaders. I've always thought a good leader is somebody who works to replace themselves.
I think this gets back to, Steve's comment about decorum and how we conduct ourselves, and that conduct
Oh, it's gonna be the same.
needs to be the model that we
Yeah,
want
all
others
the
to
same.
Yeah.
And that we can have constructive disagreements.
Exactly.
And that's a healthy thing.
Yeah.
I like the way you
So it goes back along the same lines: mutual trust, commitment. On the next one, knowing your team is what I wrote down. I thought, that's why, serving alongside you, it was important for me to get to know you. And the same thing, I want to get to know Mark. But I think when you know your team that you're serving with, then it's easier to have that mutual trust and commitment, and to be able to learn from one another. So those are some of the things that stuck out to me there.
And then in this one, it's just that collaborative relationship between us and the board that hopefully we're rowing in the same direction, and that we're, that's, we may disagree on the path, but that we can collaborate. Yeah, not just as a board team, but also with the superintendent.
Yeah.
What do we want to tell the other?
Okay.
I'd go off. I think that last
Talk
one.
to each other a little bit. So let's start because you happen to have 1 and 2. So James and Michael, it's just a conversation of things that struck you about this in terms of what are standards 1 and 2 trying to communicate about the board, the role of the board. What did it make you think about as you're going into this?
So I think a few things. Conduct and decorum, in that, how we conduct ourselves is in a responsible and transparent manner, that we make the information available, that in the policy and adopting the policies, that is a strategic role that we work in cooperation with the superintendent, staff with, and again, that we are doing so in not only a responsible and an open manner, but also in a collaborative one as well.
Yeah, I think along the same lines, working as an effective and collaborative team, I think that a lot of that is knowing your team and knowing who your partners are that you're working with. And so I think when you know your partners, you have that mutual trust and commitment. And then that second standard, I think, is really coming together and unified on a vision that we have high standards and high expectations for our students, and we'll do whatever we can to make certain our students can achieve those high expectations. So, yeah.
I think there's one other thing about standard 1 that sticks out, is really it talks about, and it's a difficult one to walk from time to time, is the role of an individual school board member playing, because we're all going to get, and we're all going to get, all have gotten calls about what inherently are not a school board issue. But to be respectful of the person that is contacting you, because oftentimes the conversation is, as nicely as I can put it, this is not a school board issue, but I am willing to help you solve this problem within the school district that you are having. I can help facilitate that, but I'm not the one to ultimately solve or meddle in that problem. And so there's that, again, I think that's part of responsible school governance and being respectful of the role of the school board, while at the same time being responsive of, you know, the community member or members that have approached you. And that's a very difficult thing to do, because the perception of most community members is they cannot properly articulate what are the legal roles and responsibilities of a school board member.
Anything else, James?
Yeah, I think what Michael's also saying is knowing your role and knowing your responsibility and knowing other people's roles and responsibilities. And so part of being a representative of the community is being able to connect the people with the people that they need to be connected with in order to solve those issues, you know, because at every level of leadership, if you try to do everything yourself, you're going to fail miserably, you know, and so you have to work together as a team, and you have to know the people that cover those responsibilities. And so I think, to Michael's point, facilitating, you know, I will help you facilitate. Let's go to this person, you know, and but yeah, I think knowing your roles and responsibilities.
Joel, Steve,
You want to go first?
standards 3 through 5. what do you guys
Sure.
think?
Totally 100% agree with what you guys said, and thank you for that. We did a 30,000 foot view of this. Sort of went through and started circling all the words on board responsibility: support, ensure, provide, require, celebrate, support, ensure, support, require, review, ensure, and almost every word that I just said, and I could keep going, but every word I just said is also connected to policy. So you can ensure something, but is that part of the policy for us to ensure to do that? So everything lines up with policy, but all those key words were really important. And Joel came up with a great summary.
Oh, thank you. To create and communicate policies and procedures that support, evaluate, and celebrate the success of each student and staff member.
Any other thoughts?
Sounds good.
Well, it's really interesting that you happen to go in that direction, because I wasn't exactly sure how it'd work out, but I had this inclination that the verbs tell us a lot, right?
Mhm.
And that when you think about staying at the strategic level, that's really what everything that you're talking about. And those verbs are actually pointing you in that direction, right? The words weren't saying hire. They weren't saying, there are a lot of verbs that were not there, right? Because they belong at some other level. And helping to point people when they have and something they'd like to have done that isn't at the strategic level, but helping people get to the right person to help with that in the district is such a key board. I think role of the board. I think something that you said is just really interesting is there's a tension between this. I think boards have a complicated role, trying to stay at the strategic level, but also trying to communicate with the community. And there's almost like it's kind of a bit of a challenge, right? Because when you're at a personal level of people needing things, it begins to put you not at the strategic level, and yet you don't want to be unresponsive, right? So I just think that you're all on the talking about the things that are really critical to what's going to make you an effective board and working together, including what you said is becoming, cohesive and knowing each other well enough to be collaborative over time. I was thinking as you were talking, there's a long time ago, I was in New York at a meeting, and there was a board that was working to hire a new leader, right? And the person being interviewed said, well, as a board, how do you approach your role? And I thought that was really interesting. There was a woman who said, I think about eyes on and fingers off. I thought that was a really interesting summary of how she saw her role, right? And so the reason that what you're saying is really important is because the research supports what not only in the standards, but what you happen to pick out as being important in standards, right? Particularly, Steve, the verbs you were talking about. So, for example, let's just talk about this. The work that these guys have been doing, both the people who did the research in Iowa, and then these guys in Montana who've been doing the research, really speak to this, that board actions matter. Because notice there's some things like factors within your control, right? Create environments, inequities are overcome, and conditions are created where every student achieves. There are some important things in there, right? One of the words that jumps out at me is every. Right? Each and every student is it's so interesting that boards have to think about all students, and that's really critical. So when people have been doing some research behind this and they've looked at these 5 core standards, then that's where this board self-assessment has come in. So imagine maybe next summer that you decide as a board to take the self-assessment. It's done online, you do it individually, and it's all collected. But what it really is a response to every one of those questions that you were just reading, and how each one of you sees the board and the district in response to those indicators. It's not like cause effect, that it's not perfect, that if the board was perfect, then all the kids would achieve, at a certain level. It's not that, but there's a relationship between what boards are doing, effective boards are doing, and districts in which kids are doing well. And so these people in Montana have been using the results from in about 3 states of this board self-assessment and looking at how does that line up with what they see happening with students in the districts of those boards. So it's very interesting. And I put just a sampler in here. First of all, boards behave differently in districts where there's low student performance and high student performance. And you maybe think, well, but remember back to that first slide, like the boards are a distance from in the classroom, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a huge influence on all the people who are working directly with the students. So that's partly from the Iowa studies. And just take a glance at these. From that work, these are sort of 8 things that have been drawn from, I would say, pulling from the research and pulling from the responses and making connections between board behavior and student outcomes. These are sort of 8 things that have started to jump out. So I'll just kind of read them. So what interests me about those 8 items is that they're directly related to many of the comments you already made. If you think about what you all said, you already have an inclination to go toward the things that are listed on that screen, right? And so that's really helpful. If you think about it, what the researchers have been doing is trying to take of all those indicators you're looking at, kind of extracting the ones that seem to have a relationship to what happens to kids, right? And so the opposite is also true. So what they've also looked at is what are some of the characteristics of boards where students in their districts are not doing as well. And so there are 8 things that are sort of the opposite. And I won't read them to you, I'll let you just read them. Now, again, these items came from how boards self-reported. So this is kind of what directors are telling people. This is what has happening in our districts. And then they've connected it to, and what they've done is then look at student achievement in these districts. They've pulled out all kinds of things. And so one of the things that, this is from a few years ago, but I happen to notice, this is another way of looking at it. These are actually the items on the self-assessment that come directly from the standards you were just reading. And notice that these are characteristics of some of the highest performing districts. These are how boards responded. And notice how some of them line up so much with what you guys were already starting to talk about. So I would just encourage you that I feel like, already you're on the right track. And if the research guys were here, they could spend 3 days on a workshop explaining all of their complicated ways they've done the research. But what I would tell you is that I think it's logical, right? That it's not surprising that if you were in a district where the board was fairly chaotic, that it spreads. It's infectious, right? It eventually has an impact on teachers and principals, et cetera. So you can imagine why the collaboration part is critical, because otherwise, how does it spill out to everyone, right? And eventually it does spill out. So let me just give you a little bit of what we talked about at the beginning. So when I asked you the question at the beginning about sort of what are some things you might need or how you can be supported, let me first of all just talk a little bit about WVSD. So it'll be a little more clear in a minute, but one thing is that all districts in the state belong to WVSD, and notice bullet 3, WVSD has no regulatory authority at all. Their job is just to provide support, and there is a staff of about 14 people in Olympia who are the WVSD staff, and you have representation on that because there's a board of directors for WVSD, and there's a person from every region in the state who is on the board that's helping guide those. So you have direct input on what happens with WVSD in many, many different ways. And so you're all members. How many of you went to the conference? Did any of you go to the conference in Bellevue? Okay. So I'm in a way, I'm kind of glad because I get to tell a little bit about it. But there are about 1,200 board members there over 3 days. And we'll talk about next year it's in Spokane. It goes from Spokane one year, Bellevue the next year. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But so this is the vision of WVSD, is that all directors can effectively govern. And again, notice the emphasis on each and every student as what they need to be successful. And just so that you know, these 3 circles represent kind of the way WVSD is organized and how the staff is organized at WVSD to support you. So in the green circle, there's policy and legal. Abigail Westbrook is the leader of that branch in WVSD. What Abigail does is there's a newsletter practically every month or so that comes out from policy and legal, but also she helps craft when the legislature writes something. She'll put together possible policies, but they're not required, right? Here's one way the policy could be laid out given what the legislature's passed. And she's available to answer questions that are for boards. Then I'll go around the other way. So the purple part is strategic advocacy, and Marissa Rathbone is in charge of that. Marissa spends all of her time listening to directors and helping shape what the agenda would be for WVSD in terms of working with the legislature. So she organizes a huge general assembly in the fall. She spends time working with directors during the legislative session. There's a day on the Hill where directors are asked to come and help. But again, her work is shaped by the directors. So Marissa doesn't come up with what is being emphasized in terms of advocacy. What happens is that directors from around the state come together and they decide what it is that they would like to have school boards be emphasizing to legislators. And then leadership development is really the support for you in terms of your own professional development. So Tricia Lubach is the Director of Leadership Development. I was thinking the other day, there's a person at the conference who was from a smaller district and said to me, gosh, WVSD is kind of emphasized over in Western Washington. I said, well, maybe, except Tricia's on the Quincy School Board and she's at her board meeting tonight, right? And actually, Lori Edwards and I, we'll talk about that with you. I'm in Yakima. Lori Edwards and I work with Tricia a lot. Lori Edwards is in Kettle Falls, Washington. So, and a former, yes.
Sorry, can I ask you, what were the, I got Tricia Lubrock's name, but Marissa?
Marissa Rathbone is head of strategic advocacy. She did this great thing at the conference called Strat Academy, which was Strategic Advocacy Academy. And policy and legal is Abigail Westbrook. So they're available and to be contacted, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. I think we're going to be just fine on time. Another thing that Michael's a little bit familiar with, in addition just to the support, leadership development also offers, if boards want to have WASDA come and help facilitate conversations or do something within the district. This year, Tricia is going to do monthly online sessions available to board members, kind of question and answer that you will be notified about, and you can join in anytime online once a month to have like a webinar. There are regional meetings, usually at least once a year here locally that people can go to. And then WASDA on Board is the thing that I've been most involved with and that Michael's a little bit familiar with. So WASDA on Board is sort of a curriculum being developed to support your work. And so over these past 5 years, my colleague Lori Edwards, who lives in Kettle Falls, she and I have been designing and working with WASDA to develop workshops to support background knowledge for directors. So just so you know, currently there are 5 finance workshops, and they'll be offered both online and in person. For example, there's one on state funding, just making sense of it and understanding how it works. We just did what we have one called Deciphering the District Budget. And actually, we're about 60 people at that attended that in Bellevue. And there were people who've been on boards for like 6 or 7 years that all went, oh my gosh, I never understood it before, and now I kind of get it, you know? And then there are currently a set of 4 equity offerings I'll talk about in just a minute. The curriculum for Onboard is kind of organized like this. Sort of at the heart of it is like the functions of a board. So providing visionary leadership, effective governance, and strategic advocacy is kind of what does a board do? And there's a whole kind of curriculum laid out to say, well, what does it mean? And so, for example, in visionary leadership, you might think about what's the board's role in strategic planning, for example. In effective governance, what's the role in financial oversight? And then in strategic advocacy, what's the board's role in, working with the legislature, et cetera? And then there's sort of these through lines. So we sort of think about it. These are really tiny, but I'll tell you what they are. The commitments, mindsets, and principles are kind of the way boards do their work. So principles are related to, serving with integrity and, modeling collaboration, kind of working in the board domain, and then commitments about equity and student success and community engagement. So as we design the workshops, we sort of think about how these things weave together, what the board is doing, and then how they go about doing it. Let me go back one. So we'll talk a little bit about this. I wanted to mention 2 things to wrap up tonight. One is there are kind of only 2 required things, the trainings I want to talk about. One of them is that a couple of years ago, the legislature said, well, all school directors will take equity training. I can tell you as the person who was tasked with designing that wasn't necessarily something we were jumping up and down about. Won't this be a great thing? As it's turned out, we have 4 different equity offerings. You can read online, but directors in their first 4 years need to take a couple of them. I think at first everybody was thinking, gosh, no one likes to be required to do anything, and that's a fair thing. But what I will say is we've now probably had about 700 people take these, and it's just very interesting how they've responded to them, because our focus in them is not to tell people what they need to be doing. Our focus is to give people something to think about and then apply it however it makes sense in their own district. So I think, Michael, you've taken the belonging one. Mm-hmm. And
it was outstanding, by the way.
Thanks. They all have that flavor. That flavor of Michael's taken the one that thinks about, that really approaches the idea of being inclusive by thinking like, what does it take to feel like you belong? Right? And so, and again, people are surprised because the idea is, however that makes sense to you, you think about it in relation to your own district, because WASDA doesn't know the context of your district, you do, right? So all of those are available to you. Many of them will be available online. If you're new to the board, I think in the first 2 years, you need to take a couple, but they're offered at the conference, they're offered online. And I've said this to Peter, Goldendale did this recently. All it takes is like 20 board members in an area and WASDA will come to you. And so like the superintendent of Goldendale said, gee, I'd like to do this in person. And we said, well, if you find enough directors, and she, in her area, quickly found 27 directors who wanted to come together. And so then WASD came to them. And what I would say that in person, they're really more meaningful. So if at some point in time, West Valley wanted to organize something, any of these, it could be the finance ones or any of them, we'd be glad to come. James.
What are the other three equity trainings?
So it's really
Belonging.
interesting. And all of them are surprising. So one of them is sort of an introduction to equity. It's called Introduction to Educational Equity. One is the one called Belonging. One of them is called Foundations of Cultural Proficiency. And it has been really surprising for people. We just did this at the conference, and it was so fascinating. That particular one, we had people from every end of the spectrum that came and said, this was so surprising because people had the most amazing conversations in a really wonderful way. And then there's another one called Identity Discrimination that is also sort of surprising to people because it's talking about the board's role in that realm. And so that's the 4. And there's a new one being developed that will be out next year that is called Addressing Outcome and Opportunity Disparities. And I think it's going to be fascinating because we're currently working on it. And then with the finance ones, there's state funding, local and federal funding, deciphering the district budget. There is vision aligned budgeting and tackling financial soundness. All of these are about 2.5 to 3 hours, but they can be online or they can be in person for sure. But I just mentioned that because there's one other thing that you might want to pay attention to coming onto the board is, within the first 90 days, the only other requirement in the state is that you have to take the open government training. And so it's available. There's the web address if you need to. But what I end with is just kind of wrap up with is, I think that if Tricia were here, what she would say is, WASD just wants to be responsive to the question that I asked you at the beginning, like, what do you need? And so you should think about that and work with Peter because Tricia is very accessible and WASD is constantly thinking about how to offer these things. Like, for example, right now, she's thinking about what should the schedule of offerings be next year, right? And how to offer them best. And then, and also I would definitely take the opportunity when you can to be involved with Marissa, who is works with the legislature, et cetera. She's terrific. And Peter and I said we have 5 minutes to transition here. If you have a couple of questions now, I'd be happy to take them or any comments before we go. Any thoughts? Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much.
Great to meet all of you. Thank you.
So actually, items arising. I wrote a couple of notes down along the lines of what just Scott said. There's a couple things that came to mind. The open governance stuff. I know that in the past we have done that as a study session, and again, this is not just Michael says, so please feel free to jump in. But I would actually encourage us to do that during a study session so that anybody that wants to see what that program is about can see what we're seeing, not just do it online. I mean, we can do it. We can watch the presentation together, but I think we should do it all together. The other thing that I think we should, and maybe we should do that in the, January or February timeframe. Another thing that I think the last time that Tricia did the study session with us was an hour on the roles between superintendent and it was very interactive and very much a role play, and it was interesting to go through that exercise and
scenarios,
and so forth. And I do think that would be I do think that would be valuable to do as a board team, perhaps in the first month or two. I think that'll help. I think that just, again, speaking out loud, and it doesn't have to be because Michael said so, but I think that would be helpful in the board team getting to know one another and working with Peter. So
that's good.
So if there's no objection, we'll work on getting that together at some upcoming agendas. So with that, it is 6:56. We will adjourn for approximately 4 or 5 minutes and come back at the top of the hour and have a regular school board meeting. Are we ready? Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. This is the school board meeting on Tuesday, December 12th at 7 p.m. And I'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, which is stage left. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Changes to the agenda, Dr. Finch?
No changes?
And just like to say a word of Peter, welcome the new school board members who are going to be sworn in just a second, and we're just really happy to be again out here at Cottonwood. I don't know why I almost said White Hollow for some reason. It's just a long day. Exactly. Happy to be out here at Cottonwood. So item 5 is appointment of board of directors and oath of office. Dr. Finch.
All right. Well, we'll work our way down the table here. So Joel asks you to go ahead and stand and raise your right hand. I, Joel Heed,
I, Joel Heath,
do hereby solemnly swear
I do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of Director of West Valley School District Number 208,
the duties of the Director of Student
West Valley School District.
of West Valley School District 208,
There you go. Yakima County,
Yakima County,
State of Washington,
State of Washington,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right, Steve Wolcott. I, Steve Wolcott,
I, Steve Wolcott,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of Director of the West Valley School District Number 208,
the duties of Director School District West Valley 208,
Yakima County,
Yakima County,
State of Washington,
State of Washington,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, James, we've had some practice here. I'll set it down.
I'll get West Valley School District number 208.
Raise your hand. Here we go. I, James Kephart,
I, James Kephart,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of Director
the duties of Director
of the West Valley School District Number 208,
of the West Valley School District number 208,
Yakima County,
Yakima County,
State of Washington,
State of Washington,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
All right, before we move on to item 6, election of officers, I'd like to make a motion, now that we have a quorum of the board seated, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mr. Strong from the study session this evening. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Did you want to abstain?
I'll abstain.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. On to item 6, election of officers. We need to elect a vice president, as our vice president, Dave Jager, is no longer on the board to serve out his remaining 1 year in that office. And then we also need to elect a legislative representative. So if it pleases the board, I'd like to, for the vice president, I'd like to nominate Mark Strong. We don't do a second here. It's so it's a nomination and I'll call for a vote. But thank you. We'll get the groove here shortly. Call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0 to elect Mark Strong, vice president of the board. Legislative representative, if it pleases the board, I'd like to nominate Steve Wolcott. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item 7, communications response to public comments. Dr. Finch.
Okay, the response to public comment is a placeholder. There was no comment at the last board meeting. And then B is the high school ASB report. Both of our high school representatives are not available to be here this evening. They did submit the written report, and that's part of the board packet.
Thank you, Dr. Finch. Item 8, school presentation, Cottonwood Elementary. Dr. Finch.
All right, so we really appreciate all of our schools hosting a board meeting each year. This year we have our December meeting at Cottonwood, and it's a great opportunity that we're going to be able to hear a short excerpt of one of the winter programs that we're going to have. That'll be over in the gym. But first, we're going to have a short presentation by Principal Michelle Seguinza. So, Michelle, we have the microphone up there, and she'll give us an update about Cottonwood, and then we're going to move over to the gym after that.
And I had a longer presentation, but I'm going to make it really short because my heart is hurting for the staff that's supervising the second graders. They've been here for a while now. But first, I just wanted to welcome this new school board members. The Cottonwood family is very excited to have you be part of our Cottonwood Coyote family. So Cottonwood is a fabulous school to be at. I'm lucky enough to be here now for 3 years. One thing that Cottonwood does that helps the academics for kids is we do a walk to read at every grade level. So it meets the kids who are achieving above grade level, and we have the kids who are reaching standards. So we have different kids go to all different reading groups throughout the day or during their reading group times. We also do a modified walk to read for math in our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And the other thing that we do that I'm very proud of here is our PBIS program. It really helps for the students and the staff to have the expectations of behaviors that should be followed throughout the whole school, outside of recess. So it's a very, we have a great foundation with our PBIS program. And I would like to thank the board for, I know last year at our presentation here, we talked about the importance of PBIS and how it would really help our district if we had a PBIS coordinator, leader, and we have one now. So thank you for that. So with that, I'm just going to cut it short, and I'm going to have everyone move into the gym, and you can watch our wonderful second graders. And they're going to be performing Little Tommy Tinker.
It's right behind it.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. Since we left so quickly, I was going to see if anyone had any questions.
Did y'all have your Christmas program already? Or
Yeah.
holiday program?
We did.
That was it.
That was it.
Oh,
They
very
had a little
nice.
more. There was like a smaller version. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was cute. Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun.
Thank you.
So any other questions
thank
from the board?
you. That was awesome.
Yeah.
All right, thank
They
you, Michelle. That
enjoyed
was
it.
really
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
All right. On to item 9. This is the public comment period on non-discussion agenda items. At this time, I will open it up for public comment. Members of the public who would like to address the board on any topic are welcome to sign in. We don't have anybody that is signed in this evening. So if anybody would like to address the board on any topic, we ask that you keep your remarks brief. Just as a reminder, the public comment form is not a proper form to address concerns about a specific staff member. If you have concerns about a specific staff member, you are encouraged to please make an appointment with Dr. Finch directly. So at this time, I'll open it up for public comment. And the microphone is just over there. So since we don't have signups, please identify yourself for the minutes, please.
I'm Carol Blevins, and I just wanted to ask the board. I asked just to catch up the new members, October 10th, if we could start the board meetings with a prayer. And at that time, I was told that none of the board members can lead a prayer. But then I kind of did some looking online and at different school districts around the nation and stuff. And some of them are people are using their, private citizens are using their public speaking time or their comment time with their First Amendment to say a prayer. Not, I wouldn't say lead, say a prayer. So I just want to ask the board if that would be acceptable. And that's all. Good to know.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. So 2 weeks ago, I came to the board meeting and I've been.
Pardon me.
Oh, sorry. My name is Matt Linder.
Thank you.
Not a problem. So 2 weeks ago, I came to the board meeting and I've been intermittent on and off over the years. In his outgoing statement, I would like to defend the citizenry from Mr. Yeager's outgoing statement. He asserted that the primary reason he was voted against was over what he termed Fox News culture issues. Mr. Yeager forgot that all politics is local. While the attribution of that political quote is lost to history, I grew up in the 80s and it was a favorite of Tip O'Neill. To that end, I would like to deflect Mr. Yeager's parting shot with a reference to the local topic. The most divisive issue in West Valley over the last decade have been the bond issues. A couple failed, but eventually the combined effort of active parents and the school district pushed one across the line. It was limited to the greatest need to elementary schools and not a broad wish list of projects. He praised himself for voting for that broad wish list of projects in his outgoing statement. I attended community forums in which defeasance versus spending of excess bond money was discussed. The board and the school district were rightfully congratulated for coming in under budget, but many told them they should diffuse the money to deposit the trust they'd earned to make future bond issues easier. I learned at these meetings at the school board, both the board and administration had deferred significant amounts of maintenance over the years. It was transferred to programs with the reasoning that it was for the kids. When I challenged the board in one of these meetings, Mr. Yeager acknowledged that in his time as principal and school board member, some of the responsibility for reallocating money from maintenance programs had been his. I commented because if you're not going to manage the money, then how can you be trusted over the long term? I commented in that community meeting that board members should resign if it was necessary to use that excess bond money to cover financial shortfalls of their own making. So Mr. Yeager's assertion that people voted against him for Fox News culture is likely incorrect, because all politics is local, because the bond issues have been the number one issue in West Valley for most of a decade, because the long tenured board members were easily identified as contributors to the financial shortfalls, and because the excess bond money was applied in ways to which the voters did not agree. So this is why I voted against the incumbents in the West Valley School District. This is why I was an active opponent to the incumbents. I didn't trust their continued management. And I know that we're going to need bond issues. I know we have other schools that need replacing. I know we have other issues. But I hope they're well planned, executed, saving money. But for this election, this was about installing people who I trusted, not people who mismanaged and then needed to take that excess. So I hope that the board, because I know you guys are now going to have a harder time. I forget the parent who said it, but he was one of the really active guys. Matt. Anyway, he was on the team. He said that if this money isn't defeased, it's going to be almost impossible to go back to the voters. Well, and I know that, but you guys, this is a clean slate. This is the voters saying, you guys did it wrong. Do it right going forward. Thank you.
Other public comment? I'll close the public. Oh, I beg your pardon.
Okay, just introduce myself. Is that correct?
Please.
Okay, hi. Cynthia White Diamond, community member here and PTSA member or president for Cottonwood Elementary. But I do want to start by welcoming the board and our new members. Congratulations. We wish you the best. I do want to say, gentlemen, that my family and I chose West Valley for a reason. I mean, not only am I a West Valley graduate, but I did leave for about 20 years. When we moved back into the Valley, we look specifically across the Valley of where we want to be. My husband works in Richland, so it would make sense to live in East Valley because it's a lot closer for him to come in and out and get home about 20, 30 minutes sooner. But being a West Valley graduate, I really kind of was hoping and pushing this direction for many different reasons. I have high expectations for West Valley. I know that I graduated with an excellent degree my diploma, and I want my kids to have the same experience I have. I am loving the diversity that's coming into the community. That's something that was important to me, coming from a diverse background. So seeing that, I hope it is continued to be encouraged amongst our community. I love the new district implements that we are doing for community engagement, family engagement. We have now had, I believe, 2 before school district-wide engagement ceremonies, and then our winter one that just happened last week, and those are being noticed. I do appreciate that we're trying to get families on board, and we are, I feel like, doing our best with our meetings that aren't always the best populated, but trying to get the community engaged with diversity and equity and the portrait of a graduate, and how do we want to move our district forward. So I think these are positive steps that we are taking to ensure that West Valley has its reputation. We do have a reputation for being the best in the Valley, and I want to earn that across the board, not only how we're treating our general population students, but our special needs services and our diverse learners and our ethnic communities that are coming in. So good luck to you all. And I am very proud to be a part of this West Valley community. So thank you.
Thank you.
I won't be so quick. Anyone else? Thank you. All right, I'll close the public comment period. On to item 10, which are approval of minutes. We have minutes from our November 28th meeting, and the minutes were in the packet. I'd call for a motion to, or I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes from the November 28th meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries on approval of minutes 5-0. Next up is item 10B, approval of resolution. And tonight we have resolution 2312-761, which is the appointment of investment officer, auditing officer, and signatory of warrant registers. Dr. Finch, would you like to introduce that further?
Yeah, this is with the new board members. We need to get new signatures on file. And we submit those to the county.
Right. And so just for everybody in the audience, the resolution appoints Dr. Finch, William Joe Conley, and Stacy Drake, both assistant superintendents, as auditing officers, investing officers, and signers of warrant registers, which is our usual practice to do this on a once-a-year basis. With that introduction, I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 23-12-761, appointment of investment officers, auditing officer, and signatories of warrant registers.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. Call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item 11, items arising. So at this time, if any of the board members would like to raise anything for consideration in a future board meeting, now is the time to come forward with that. Hearing none. Superintendent's report.
Okay, just share that I really appreciate the new board members being open to getting out the buildings with me. So we've been making the rounds and getting to know staff and our administration, getting into classrooms, seeing our students in action. So that's been a really fun experience. One of the things I had shared with the new board members is that as an administrative team, we meet once a week on Wednesdays to focus on operational issues. And, my goal is to, if something arises in that Wednesday meeting, we have it taken care of by the next Wednesday. We don't want to have things just hanging out there, not taken care of. So we try to take care of issues immediately. There is one issue that was raised that we've been working on, and that is the after school at the mid-level campus. We have a large number of students that come and do bus transfers at that time. And we're trying to find ways to minimize the number of students from the high school that have to transfer a bus. We also learned that we have a lot of kids that come from the high school. They go down to the mid-level campus, they get off the bus, and then they walk home from the mid-level campus. So we're looking at ways that we can minimize that as well. So in the board packet, I included a report that said that we're working on this. We do have transportation needs to get some of our new drivers certified. Once we have that capacity, then our plan is that we would run another bus route from the high school that would pick up kids from the high school, would not drop them at the mid-level campus, but would drop them along the areas where they would walk. So it's along, I believe, 80th, 72nd, Nob Hill areas. So those kids wouldn't even come to the mid-level campus. Those kids would be dropped, and that would reduce the number of students. And then also we would have all the students from the high school would get on their route that they have at the high school. They would not need to transfer once they get to mid-level campus. They would stay on the bus. It would really minimize the amount of students that we have doing the bus transfers. And it would just really make a much better environment after school at the mid-level campus. We just have quite a few students right now, all the students from the mid-level campus, and then all these high school kids that are transferring buses. We're working to get a new plan in place. We'd like to be able to start it for the second semester, which I believe is January 17th. If we have the capacity, we'll start it then. That's assuming that our new bus drivers pass their test that they need to and such. So, but as soon as we get the capacity, we have a plan in place to make that a much more manageable site. And so just wanted to share that with the board, that is one of the more long-range operational issues that we've been working on. And that's the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Finch. Item 13, board reports, board development. So this is the time for the school board members to report on anything that they may have done or seen would like to bring to the board's attention in form of a report. It is not mandatory that you speak during this time, but if you have something to share, you may do so at this time.
Nothing.
I'll just say that I've enjoyed, as Dr. Finch said, I enjoyed going around to some schools so far, and I'm going to do another one this week. And it's just been fun to do that and get to see the kids in the classroom and meet some people. It's been good. So appreciate that.
Yeah, we're looking forward to our visit on Thursday to Apple Valley. They did forewarn us that it's a crazy winter sweater day or something like this. So we've got a warning on that one.
Monday was plaid day.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We had a wonderful plaid day at White Hollow. That was great.
I guess I'll just say a couple of again welcoming words to our new school board members. I know that Mr. Strong and I look forward to working with all of you. I've had an opportunity to meet with a couple of you individually, and I look forward to doing that on a one-on-one basis with Joel as time permits as well. But I've enjoyed very much. I've enjoyed very much our brief time and our interactions together, and I'm very excited about. I'm very excited about our new board team, and look forward to continuing the really good work that already happens in the West Valley School District, and we're gonna continue that moving forward. So, with that, Mr. Strong, anything else to add?
No, I think you said it very well. I've said it before, but welcome to the new board members. I really do look forward to working with you on a variety of issues. And I think not only will we have a good time trying to deal with some of the issues that face the school district, but I think it'll be very beneficial for the school district overall as well. So welcome once again, and just look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 7:38. Thank you very much.